Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
Oh, nah, man. John Cena, he's a full-blown, he's comedian, man. He's so entertaining in his own way.
Welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Harvey Quezada. Harvey, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harvey Quezada. I'm 25 years old. I'm a voice actor from Easton, Pennsylvania. I've been doing VA since January of 2022. I have been 3 years experience. I've been doing it for a while. I love it. I've gotten multiple training for the last few years, whether it came to character work, improv, video games, and it's been one great ride for sure. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, Harvey, you ready to get started?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see the 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So Harvey, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
I would say so. I mean, comic, you're starting out. I would say that's like the starting point to being like a comedian in the future. So obviously, you have to like get the reps in and train. And once you get to that point, to expert level, that's a comedian for sure.
All right. So you ready for the first question?
Ready.
All right. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus the real self?
As a character, depending on like if they want to like really put their voice out there and like sound comedic, that's where like the comedic vibes come in. And then obviously, of course, tying it, a lot of comedy, they have like the real life persona. They talk about the real life and everything like that. That's where the real life person come in. So I would say that's like a really unique combination of like adding both your own voice and then like your personal experiences in life.
So does authenticity matter, or is illusion part of the magic?
No, authenticity for me, authenticity always matters. Again, comedians, they tell true stories of their life in a comedic tone. So definitely authenticity, that is top level. Not just for comedy, but also improv as well, given the fact that improv is involved in comedy and acting as well, which is what, I do.
All right. So is John Cena a comic or a comedian?
Oh, nah, man. John Cena, he's a full-blown, he's comedian, man. He's so entertaining in his own way. I mean, in the beginning, of course, he's starting out and stuff like that. But then over time, he developed his own comedian style. Now, not just in wrestling, but in acting as well. He's a very funny guy.
All right. So punching up versus punching down. So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? Let me put it in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Ooh, that's a great question. To my knowledge, I don't think so, no.
Okay. So is the audience's agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
For me personally, I would say alignment for sure. Once a joke hits, they're in line with this guy. Like, yeah, I'm with them. I'm with this comedian. He's funny.
All right, got it. So we're working on alignment. So cultural translation of comedy. So how do jokes that how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Oh, one joke country. Well, given the fact about the world today is that now a lot of people become more sensitive in a way. And what I mean by that is, in certain people in the country, like people who grew up with comedians who like went over the top, they understand that like, okay, that's their way of communicating with people. That can be good for them, honestly, because like they're joking and stuff like that in certain countries. But at the same time, however, they know that some countries will not like certain jokes or phrases, and it'll be very off-putting for them. And the comedian, they can get into massive trouble for that. So they definitely have to be careful, not just like outside the country, but in as a whole. Just be careful not to offend the wrong people, wherever you are in the world.
Okay. So, how does the silence when your joke doesn't land hurt? Physically, emotionally, or morally?
Physically, your whole body just like shuts down. You don't want to move. You're stilted. Your heart just like stops racing. It drains you. Mentally, you think to yourself, oh no, this is bad. This is not good. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And morally, you think to yourself, like, maybe this wasn't the right thing to do after all.
Okay, that's one way to see it. So, are comics more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
I would say so. Yeah, comics definitely universal, and comedians, yeah, they're like all around for sure.
Okay. So, crowd work versus crafted work. So, if comics riff like influencers in the comments section and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where's the sweet spot?
Ooh, the good question. The sweet spot, it would really be anyone's personal taste. People like to see the comics perform, and some people like the comedians perform. The sweet spot is like what exactly about their personality and like their mannerisms and how they react to certain ways, how would they fit and how they relate to the individual that's watching them, I would say.
Okay. So, what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work?
If a comedy's in the crowd work, it could be off-putting for some people. They would think like, why is this person not staying true to themselves? Like, why are they trying to pretend to be someone they're not or being somebody else? And then they're gonna think like, okay, this person's a fake, a phony. Like, I don't want to see this person.
All right. So, what about when a comedian gets heckled?
Comedian gets heckled. Yeah, that's definitely not going to be a good feeling for anybody. They're going to think like, this person's not funny. Why am I wasting my time listening to this person telling these jokes? And then the comedian would be like, okay, yeah, I lost a fan. And that happens, fans are not going to be appealed by everything. And when the comedian gets heckled, it's off-putting. And the audience, they're just going to tune out.
All right. Very important question. Advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Ooh, great question. For me, advertisement, I would say definitely the comedian. You see very well-known comedians. They have ads everywhere, not just like outside of billboards, like in social media. Any social media platform, you always see the comedians doing advertisements in any like Instagram or TikTok. You see all these advertisements on YouTube as well. You see them like advertising their shows, they're advertising their comedy specials, their TV shows. So I would say that for sure.
So is self-promotion seen as selling out, or is it necessary for survival?
Self-promotion, definitely survival. And also I'm going to add in my case too, self-promotion, promoting yourself in any where you go, it's important for any type of career like that, entertainment as well, not just comedy in general. Self promotion, you're lending your services, you're lending yourself to other people and see like who you are as an individual and your talents and why they want to sign you up for stuff, why they want to hear your voice. So I would say self promotion, definitely up there. Even when you get to expert level, self promotion, always necessary, period.
All right. So, censorship and defense. Does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Offense. There are at times I've seen in myself, there are at times where offense can go anywhere and like and the comedian or comic they might not really like care as much, like that's a lot of them, that's how they tell jokes. They offend people and there's really no other way around it for most of the time. And when they do get offend somebody, then people will start to notice and they're like, why is he saying that? Why is she saying this stuff? And that can happen again. So like certain like individuals, certain countries, they react to that type of stuff in that offensive way. Especially in this day and age, it's easy to get offended by a lot of people. Offended, so it's a lot more worse than it was back then. Back then, however, it wasn't like being offensive wasn't like as bad. But now in this day and age, okay, like now everyone's sensitive and I gotta watch what you're saying.
All right. So, who survives better in a cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Ooh, good question. Hmm. I would say probably magician, given the fact they're ones who are crafting, they understand how the world is working. They're adapting. They're seeing what works and what doesn't. They see like what can land and what doesn't land. And since they like try to create like magic and stuff like that, they see okay, this can work. And they also have the idea that like if this idea doesn't work, then okay, I'm not gonna do it. Also, not just magician, also the comic as well. Because a comic, they're also like they're starting out, they're growing, they're adapting to the new culture. Same thing as before. They're learning, they're watching, they're studying everything that offends people, that doesn't offend people, and they see it. They're like, okay, this is gonna work. This will not work. I know what I'm doing.
All right. So, timing and delivery, science or art? So, do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
I would honestly say this might be a hope this is not a controversial. So I would say it would fit for both. The timing is pretty much everything, no matter where you are, whether a comic or media. Timing, it's a science and a craft at its own. Timing is pretty much everything in between. Timing, when you see a joke about to land right at that moment, like think about this. When they're building up to a joke, they start building up and building up and building up. And then when that joke lands at that perfect time, everyone starts laughing. They enjoy it and they want to see it over and over again. No matter what, not just comedy, but in general, timing is everything. No matter where you are, beginner, intermediate, advanced, comic, comedian, timing is everything. It's a science, it's a craft. Timing is always a part of the craft, no doubt.
All right. All right. So, laughter versus applause. So, are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks or a primetime Emmy that validate the message?
A primetime Emmy doesn't need to validate anybody. I feel like a lot of the award shows, they don't need, a lot of people don't need an award to validate themselves. They're just being true to themselves. And the fact that they know that they're laughing throughout and by the end of the show that they get the applause, that in itself is a win. The audience, they enjoy the show they saw, whether they do laughing or clapping or everything in between, both. Whenever that comes in, when people react positive to what you did, to a show that was acclaimed, that's a true validation. You got to where you want to be. Awards, they're great and all, but they don't validate any talented performer, in my opinion.
All right. So, comedy as commentary. When does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
pretty sure, a lot of comedians, they give a lot of great advice and they give a lot of great tips. They fault, like, not just that, also how they grew up. A lot of comedians that I'm aware of, they didn't have a very let's say, calm upbringing. They didn't have a really good upbringing. And you learn life lessons from that. Stay humble, stay motivated, don't be mean to people, and always stay true to yourself. And don't ever go overboard. And like, don't ever try to do anything that tarnishes your reputation. You learn these life lessons, and over time, you hear from other people, whether it be strangers or teachers, that you learn a lot of quotes, but then you add it on by your own. You add your own type of quotes and motivational speeches. So for me, personally, I feel like it comes from the performer to find out like what clicks from people that they were mentored by, and they come up with their own motivation.
So is that good or does it dilute the humor?
For me personally, I think it's good either way. The fact that they learned they saw where they came from, they learned from it, they stayed true to themselves, no matter what people thought of them, whatever others' opinions, their opinion matters the most. So I would say just staying true to themselves. It doesn't dilute anything. People don't like it, okay? You're not going to appeal to everybody. That's just how it is.
All right. So, Harvey, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right. So, board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. If comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
For me personally, the full artist.
Okay. So does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
I would say a mixture of both. Both of those qualities fits into any artist. They have to combine everything. I mean, like everything.
All right. So here on the Comedians in Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Kyle Ouellette. And his question for you, Harvey, is how much can a comedian make up in a story before the story loses its authenticity?
Oh, that's a great question. Here's my honest answer. There are comedian shows that I've seen many times before. They are able to go a long time because they have all these real life experiences that last a long time. Let's say if I were a comedian, right? I would tell like 5 full-length stories of my family, my life, and being able to do that for a long period of time, being able to do it the whole way through and not losing anything at all at the very like the master level, that is perfect in my opinion. Now in the beginning, however, it wouldn't be as easy because again, you're just starting. You don't really live enough life experience as a whole yet. I say yet. Why is that? Because again, you're still learning, you're still growing. And with that said, it might not be able to all land properly and people might zone out. But once you get to that level, when you start experiencing more and more life, you're going to think to yourself, okay, I nailed this. I was able to go the whole way through. So hopefully that's not complicated, but I would say that's my answer. Make sure you get as much life experience as possible and you're all set.
That's a final answer. All right. Last question. Legacy.
Okay.
Who gets remembered? Will the comics Tight Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
The cultural point of view, that is actually interesting to think because again, we all have different points of view. Now, for most people that the fans of comedian, yeah, it can stick with them for a long time and they will never forget about it. For the comic, however, the Big Five, that I'm iffy about that one, to be honest, because again, it might not be as remembered in my personal opinion. So for the comedian, their philosophical points of view, that can go on to generations. So for me, I would say the comedian's philosophical point of view for sure.
All right. So, Harvey, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me on my website, voice-hq.card.co. The card is CARRD.co. You can find me on Instagram, Harvey Quezada 95. You can find all my social media, can be on my website, and I'll be happy to share for sure.
All right. Well, Harvey, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.
Thanks so much.
If you're interested in too much information like in the network state or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard